Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr., broadcasting live from the South Florida Bitcoin Citadel, where it is sunny AF, hot AF, super humid, but not where I am because of climate control. So thank you for the modern amenities of modern culture, everybody. So if you are watching live, first of all, thank you. You are the real hero. all five of you at the moment. The real heroes here. If you could tell your friends that we are live, we are going to do an Ask Me Anything show. So by anything, I mean typically Bitcoin, blockchain, or related topics. But if you want to get extra spicy, I'm totally cool with going spicy. But before we do any of that, please like, subscribe, and hit the alert bell. When you do that, it tells the YouTube algorithm that you actually enjoy our content. And if you tell the algorithm that you enjoy our content, it does this interesting thing where if somebody goes and watches like Lex Friedman interviewing Vitalik Buterin, I might be the follow-up video to that if we get enough of these subscriptions and things. So people will say, okay, so the person viewing, perhaps you, your friends, or some future blockchain aficionado, is watching something about, listening to like Michael Saylor talk about like, there is no second best, right? And he's grinding his teeth with like Coke all over his face. Well, then I'm the follow-up video, and then it can be me doing impressions of Michael Saylor, and then they get to see my take on his nonsense. And this is good for literally all of us. So if you want to see me go recursive, viral, if you want to see the Taurus fold in on itself the way that Tauruses do, liking, subscribing, and hitting the alert bell is a really good way to do that. So we have Brandon Ward in the captain's chair today because, it's one of those days, frankly. And by one of those days, I mean a day where Alex Moon has been taken back into Thai custody for failure. I don't know the details exactly, but Alex Moon back in Thai prison. We wish him well. Alex, actually, okay. I'm gonna roll this back a little bit. It's not Thai prison. So Thailand actually has an exchange program where they will let you do community service locally. So Alex is somewhere out in the rural British Isles picking up trash with one of those like squeezy grabber things. And if he was a British prisoner, I think he'd be an orange. But since he's a Thai prisoner, they put a funny hat on him, and he's wearing like streamers and stuff. So, Alex, good luck. I'm looking forward to when we get to the other side of this. It's going to be a good thing. Okay, because it's an Ask Me Anything show, I need your participation, you, the viewer. So I can talk about me. I can talk about my friends. I can talk about my family and my hobbies and my joys and my nonsense. But I need you to ask me questions for me to answer. So we're going to let those sort of backfill a little bit. If you can be a little flirty with Brandon, he'd appreciate a little bit of word action. Like, hey, Brandon, you're looking fancy today. If you could please let me get my question slipped through to Kurt. Brandon appreciates the tips. Brandon, if you want to put your hand cash handle up in the ticker, you go ahead and you do that. And I encourage you, everybody, to please tip Mr. Brandon Ward. He works hard. He's never gone to prison so far as I'm aware. And there we go. There's the tipper ticker. So if you want to if you want to ticker tip, yes. If you want to ticker tip the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream crew, we would appreciate you very much. And since we're talking about hand cash a little bit, if you need a hand cash wallet, you can go ahead and download yourself a hand cash wallet. But I'm pretty excited about CoOM battles. We're going to try to get the CoOM battles people on the show to talk about, CoOMing, I guess. So, Mr. Ward, if we have any questions, or maybe we should play the ad. Let's get the questions a little bit queued up. We got a couple of advertisements, and then we'll come back and start to take on your questions and talk about how to solve the problems of the universe with Bitcoin. So, Brandon, take it away.
What's up, guys? On the next CoinGeek Roundtable, I'll be hosting a discussion on one-sat ordinals and ordinals in general, and why this protocol has been adopted throughout the digital currency space. I'll be joined by former Fixed Gaming CTO David Case, the founder of AIM, Nicola Schreiber, and the former Director of Engineering at the Bitcoin Association, Jad Wahab. We'll be live at 9 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday, June 28th. Join us, get your questions ready. We're going to discuss everything going on in Ordinals. See you guys then.
We are back from the ad. Okay. So, all right. It is crucial. Mr. Joshua Hensley is going to be live tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're in college, 9 a.m. is typically when the sun has been up for 3 hours in the summer. So if you are an adult human, you can go ahead and subscribe and hit the alert bell to watch the CoinGeek Roundtable. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the universe. I want to talk about BlackRock for a minute here. Then we can cut into some of these questions here, and but let's get more questions, everybody. I would love to talk topically about what you want to talk about. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, which is typically going to be jujitsu, fatherhood, religion, and maybe politics. So up to you, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about BlackRock. So for everybody that is like, who knows what BlackRock is? Can I get a show of hands, people? What is BlackRock? Okay, BlackRock is one of the largest investment firms in the world. In fact, by some measures, they are the biggest investment firm in the world. And they are known for kind of a draconian, I don't know what it is. It's sort of like a pledge of allegiance of sorts, that if you're going to take BlackRock money, if you're going to allow the lizards to lay an egg in your brain, what you have to give up for it is this compliance with their general ESG mandate. And for those of you who do not know what ESG stands for, it's eggs, sausage, and graham crackers, I think. But no, actually, so it typically has to do with like your environmental standards and other things with how you're going to operate your company. But it also includes what are typically progressive social issues. So these would be the, hey, you're going to accept $100 million from BlackRock. You're going to participate in various holidays in the way that we decide. So like Pride Month, for example, Pride Month, it's Pride Month now, and they will explain to you exactly how you need to display your Pride Month regalia across your brand. And this would be one of the things that is in the not so fine print of your BlackRock investment contract. And for some people, that's totally fine. For other people, that might be like an extreme moral compromise for the integrity of your company. And so it's important to understand that with BlackRock investment comes some of those trade-offs. There's also ESG. When people think of ESG, they're very specifically thinking about basically green energy, reduction of carbon emissions, and those sorts of things, which makes me a little bit nervous about what the heck they're doing in the Bitcoin space. Because if BlackRock is able to successfully launch an ETF, and they are the most successful firm at launching ETFs, if they do such a thing, they're not just going to do the ETF. BlackRock is also very likely to invest in your public mining infrastructure, your public node infrastructure, things like exchanges, custodians, and other players in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so if you do those things, and so then all of a sudden BlackRock is controlling the Bitcoin narrative. All of that, you can take a value judgment the way that you see it. Is this good or is this bad? But if you look at the culture of Bitcoin generally or historically, Bitcoiners have a tendency to be very independently minded. They have a bit of a libertarian bent. If they're not specifically libertarian, they're much more likely to have kind of a right-wing bent. But then BlackRock has this, what have I mentioned? I'm talking about Pride Month, and I'm talking about green energy and CO2 reduction. So these are sort of generally left-wing issues, right? And so you have right-wingers and libertarians who see themselves as like, hey, man, Bitcoin's going to change the world for reasons X, Y, and Z. And is this then a good thing for your Bitcoiners and your stuff if all of a sudden you've got, whoever, Marathon Mining, Riot, Coinbase, Fireblocks, Prime Trust, all doing the weird green energy thing and whatever else. Now, the reason I bring this up is, well, of course, a company like Riot or Marathon or Hut 8 or Core Scientific or whoever, they're going to want to do what's most efficient from an energy standpoint because their energy is very directly linked to the profitability of their business as like a foundational principle. But to turn it into something political puts them in a weird position in the first place. Like, you are expending the amount of energy used to secure quite a large city, like its entire power grid, just for seeing if the ledger has changed in the last 10 minutes. And in BTC, it's changed small. Like, you can't do a whole lot. You can maybe add 200,000-ish changes inside of a 10-minute period. And so from an expenditure standpoint, it's really, really, really inefficient. Now, if you were to have trillions of transactions in a 10-minute period, then you can make this case that, like, hey, this is exponentially more efficient than Visa, and isn't that a good thing? But in BTC, it's not. So I think the baggage that comes with the BlackRock situation would include the sorts of things that are going to have spillover consequences that are going to make a number of people a little bit wound up. So, Mr. Ward, Brandon, if you could pop up a couple of these questions. I'm getting a little bit of feedback on this topic, so I would love to address my audience directly. Mr. Alex Vidal, didn't the BlackRock ETF specifically mention Craig Stephen Wright, CSW? Yes, it did. So if you read the SEC filing for BlackRock, which is a necessary thing. So what they do when you're going to do an ETF, you do an application with the Securities Exchange Commission, and you explain all of the existential risks to your offering, as well as crazy left field, and what's the lay of the land, essentially, but in a really, really granular sense. Like, it is a long, drawn out document, but it's not particularly difficult to read. And in that document, there was mentioned 3 human beings, which is not common. Like, normally in any environment, like, you mention the CEOs that matter, or the influencers that matter, or the names of the institutions that are large holders, and these kind of things, because this is what's relevant to the market action of the thing that you're going to do. Well, in this one, the 2 that were, I forget who the third one was, but number 1 was Janet Yellen, who is the secretary, what is she, Fed chairwoman, I think is what her title is. Then the other one was Craig Stephen Wright. And so it explains the risks associated with the fact that, like, hey, Craig is this guy who's doing this stuff, and maybe he's Satoshi, and maybe these other things. But the interesting thing, too, is not only, like, of all the people in the world who they could mention as Bitcoiners, like, they didn't mention Michael Saylor, they didn't mention Robert Breedlove, and they didn't mention Tone Vase, and they didn't mention the Winklevoss twins. They didn't mention Brian Armstrong. They didn't mention Jesse Powell. They didn't mention Roger Ver. Like, they didn't mention all kinds of people that they could have mentioned. They mentioned Craig Stephen Wright, because if you're talking about existential risk to the ongoing narrative about what is Bitcoin, he's it. He's the guy with the biggest staff to shake at the orcs trying to cross the bridge, frankly. And so it's interesting that they also explained the nature of a hash war and what happens in a fork situation. And so basically they said that, like, look, the trustees of the BlackRock ETF may decide that a chain other than the popular narrative about what is Bitcoin, the trustee may decide that another chain is Bitcoin. Now, that's a very interesting omission because admission. It is an admission because it was admitted, explaining how, hey, you know what? Our opinions could change, and we're such a big holder that our opinion would really matter, and all these other things. Now, this precipitated, like, it was right around when these discussions were made that all of a sudden you started to see the price action of BSV and BCH start to outperform. Actually, BCH has outperformed like everybody in the last like 2 or 3 weeks here. And so that's a real curiosity. Now, I don't have any inside information. I have seen some, like, I know some of the people that work at the wallets that do swap services, right? So I think you know who they are. You got your Trust wallet, you got Exodus, you got your Rock wallet people, you got all these people that, like, instead of going to an exchange or going to a DEX, people do their swaps in their wallets, right? And so if you're one of those people, I think that what could have happened, now this is not investment advice, this is me being purely speculative, is that speculators read this in the BlackRock ETF filing with the SEC and said, wait, BlackRock could decide that another fork is Bitcoin? Like, that's a big claim, right? And so if you do any fundamental research, like, hey, what other chains could be Bitcoin other than the popular narrative of BTC? And obviously you're going to fall down the rabbit holes of Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. And so wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden the prices are pumping on BCH and BSV, presumably because there's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars that are coming from retail investors saying, okay, look, if I'm going to spend $25,000 or $30,000 on one BTC coin, I can go ahead and spend $25 on one BSV and 100 and whatever it was, $150 on one BCH, and I have a 1-to-1-to-1 portfolio of the alleged Bitcoin basket using SHA-256 hash power. And then you have done a really, really inexpensive de-risking of your portfolio. You have depoliticized your portfolio. By depoliticization, I'm talking about, like, hey, let's say you're an oil company executive and you invest a little bit in some solar and a little bit in some, geothermal energy company or something, right? Or wind energy or something like that. So now you're in the energy sector. You know, energy is not going to be a sector of the economy that is going to go away. But what you don't know is, hey, what is energy going to look like in 20 years? Are we going to be primarily coal, gas, fossil fuel generally? Or are we going to actually move toward, these sorts of renewables? And if you want an unpolitical portfolio, if you want to be able to rest easy knowing that, well, it's going to be something and whatever happens, I'm going to make some money, well, then it makes sense, right? You would invest in coal, natural gas, oil, wind, solar, nuclear, geothermal, right? And then you're fine. You can sleep easy. So it's the same thing with what I call very generically the Bitcoin basket. You have your BTC, your BCH, and your BSV. And if you're going to spend what is today now, $30,000 on one BTC, how hard is it to spend $35 on one BSV and $300 or whatever it is on a BCH, right? Now you're that person with a depoliticized portfolio. So Matthew Giles bringing up, evening, Kurt. Well, evening, sir. I suspect you're in the UK or the EU. Living in the future. What is your take on this week's BCH and BSV pump? Is there a reason, or do you think it's another pump and dump? I think the fact that it's both of them indicates that it's not likely a pump and dump. If it was just one and not the other, you get the very typical, like, it's Roger pumping his Bitcoin Cash, or it's Calvin pumping BSV, right? These are the criticisms that come from your local anonymous anarchist commie troll punk on Twitter, where they say that sort of thing. But the fact that they're both pumping and they're both doing it in a way that is completely uncorrelated from the rest of the market, like the rest of the market is really not pumping, indicates to me that it is something more along those lines. Now, the other possible thing, there was an announcement from Huobi, which is I believe they're Chinese, but they're an Asian exchange, an old one, a big one. Huobi is a big Bitcoin exchange traditionally, a lot of volume. Have announced that they're doing perpetual futures on BSV BSV USDT pair. And so that's interesting. So they would likely need to hold a certain amount of coins to collateralize their own trading as well. And you can actually, this would be a good opportunity to have Jack Pitts on. Jack, if you're watching the show, let's see if we can get you on. I'd love to actually hear your thoughts live as my gray-haired Wall Street veteran guy about what what certain things mean. Jack, feel free to reach out to Brandon Ward, and let's see if we can get you on the air if you want to do like a 15-minute commentary on what the Huobi futures means, because you've been the guy advocating for OKX to delist BSV for the sake of its value, market manipulation being what it is. So it's a curiosity. The problem with everything is it's hard to know what's real and what's not. And I have to be completely fair. If you're going to make the case that the downward pressure, the downward price action of things like BSV is the product of manipulation, then you have to at least be fair with yourself in your own research and looking into, what is causing the upward price momentum? And you have to consider the fact that could also just be, some fraudulent stuff by some vector that we don't understand. Your market maker nonsense guys, your three Belarusian guys sitting in an apartment building with direct access to Bitfinex's books or whatever it's going to be. You need to be fair with yourself and look into that. So that's my take on all the the theories as to what's going on and what could be going on there. But keep your eye out, because it really to me it seems like a groundswell. And the reason it seems like a groundswell is because it seems like the action is originating at retail-focused wallets. Like, again, your Exodus, your Rock wallet, or whatever. So that would indicate to me that it is an organic groundswell. But again, I do not know what I don't know. Mr. Ward, next question, please. Also, if you're watching, and I see that many of you are, please fill the chat box. Ask me anything. This is the point of the show. I want to know what you want to know. I want the show to be facilitated toward you, because ultimately you're the reason I'm here. So ISO. I am not a big expert on ISO generally. What is ISO? I think is International Standards Organization. And 20022 is a standard that is designed basically to come up with a very firm protocol as to how like international financial transactions are supposed to be built. But that's about all I know about it. I don't really understand what the point is for ISO standardization of such things, except to say that so we have things like Swift and ACH and Fedwire, which all kind of do the same thing, but they use completely different networks for who knows what reason, right? And it's literally because these were started as commercial entities, like Swift, for example. Swift is a semi-commercial entity, and Fedwire is also a semi-commercial entity, but they both also have like weird government integrations because there's so much money going across them. What ISO what it would be 20,022? That is definitely not the right way to say that. Again, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more of the backstory as to what it's for and why it's being done. But ultimately, it is. Oh, cool. We do have Jack Pitts. We're going to get him on at about 2:45, and we're going to talk about the market manipulation potential here. But yes, so the ISO standard, it's probably just to consolidate things in. So again, you take whatever rails are used by Western Union, your commercial banks, your Swift, your ACH, your all these other things. If you consolidate all of them together into one protocol, maybe you get some kind of economies of scale out of the whole thing. But ultimately, I don't know enough about it to know what the planning is or what the logic is for moving toward it. I also don't know if there's a mandate to move toward it. Just because there's an ISO standard doesn't mean you need to use it either. So unless you're in a specific industry, but we'll see. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. Next one, please. When digitizing gold on Creggies? Good question, Sir Biscuits. First of all, I love your Twitter, basically your social media attitude in general. So thanks for being you. So there's actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything. This is not This is not like up the typical chain that you might think. But I have a colleague who is looking to do exactly that. He wants to digitize gold on BSV, and he wants to build a whole like exchange, swap, and all this other stuff that integrates to make it useful as money. So essentially what Peter Schiff was talking about. I'm not talking about Peter Schiff right now, but it's similar to what Peter Schiff and I were talking about when he was on my show 6 months ago. Now, what are the hurdles? Well, there's custody, there's attestation people, there's all this other stuff. Plus, there's all kinds of things. There's like Tether Gold, and there's Pax Gold, and there's all these other gold. So it's like, what's the like liquidity versus scalability and all these other things? Plus, is the market actually clamoring to use gold as money on a blockchain? Like the response is well, not right now, but if the dollar falls apart, all of a sudden, we're gonna wish we did the work 6 months ago. Whenever the dollar crashes, if it crashes, right? All that to say, I don't know, but I do know people are working on it. And the AMLA Gold project is one. It was kind of a joint thing between Eli and Elas Digital and some of the other people. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything more firm about it. Next question, please. Any thoughts on Jess Jonas YouTube interviews? I thought she came across as desperate in the Stephen Livera interview. I didn't watch it, unfortunately. I haven't touched on it. If you would like to add a little more information, give me a little more context, I'd be happy to comment on it. Next one, please. None of us are CoOMing yet. Because I don't think the game is live, but I have been collecting cards. I have at least a dozen cards. I've bought a couple. I'm in the secondary markets. I'm pretty excited for CoOM battles. I think it's going to be really cool. And just conceptually, like I think the game looks really good. So I'm not a big gamer, but it looks like I'm going to have to be because I'm actually interested in the games. The characters look cool, and yeah, so I'll be able to officially be working while playing CoOM battles. I can text my wife and be like, sorry, dear, I'll be home in an hour. I'm busy CoOMing. So next one, please, Brandon. Can you explain how the .sats ordinals work? I used Unisat wallet. I'm interested, but don't know where to find the information. The script looks like PSNS on op reg name example sats. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's the right way to start? Like DNS, like talk about DNS, rather like I guess DNS records. So, okay, so you have DNS records, which is the way the internet communicates like one place to another. You need an address. Okay, so this is actually based on like mailbox protocol, which is like literally like U.S. postal. Like, how do I send a letter to Brandon? Like, write down his address and put it on an envelope. They really just kind of transpose that into the digital. And DNS works that way. There's a domain authority that explains the route that should be used in order to get onto a certain website, right? So this is a standardized protocol. And then you point your record at whatever IP address, which is another addressing system, and you put your website up as a file on a server. And you point the DNS record at it, and then you can use it as a way. Like, for example, you can go to kurtwuckertjr.com, and you can see my website because the domain registrar points the DNS record at the IP address that is hosting my website. Okay. Same thing with CoinGeek.com. Same thing with, whatever. Anywhere you go, this is how the internet works. Now, in the Bitcoin space, what they're trying to do is say, okay, let's talk SNS. So like SAT records. And so you can do, for example, I own Wuckert.sats, or I also own KurtWuckertJr.sats. Okay. So what I have done is I have bought a piece of namespace that is compliant with a specific protocol, and I have paid to post it onto the BTC Bitcoin blockchain. Okay. Now, presumably with that, somebody will create higher level stuff for websites, logins, payment protocols, or whatever that use that SNS standard. And if they do, then I can tell people, yeah, pay me at Wuckert.sats or KurtJR.sats or whatever I want it to be. And so if you want to prepay Like what you're essentially doing is you're trying to front run, you're trying to buy a domain space for yourself that you want to use, or perhaps you want a domain squat and try to sell like Coca-Cola.sats to Coca-Cola Corporation someday. And ultimately, it uses that as an on-chain record of attestation in order to route payments or whatever else to you. So that's the concept behind it. As for Unisat Wallet, I've only used it really sparingly, so I probably shouldn't be the guy to do anything related to like a Unisat tutorial. But that's the basic premise of what we're trying to do is you're using it as a pointer, and because ordinals are tokens that don't ever move and never change, and they are the first seen ordinal is always seen as the valid one. You're essentially claiming a piece of like digital property in time and saying that this is the valid one, and getting away from like hashes and all this other stuff and saying like, pay me BTC at kurtjr.sats, right? So that's the concept. And then how it'll be applied is a little bit like it's not really being applied to very much at all right now. But what they want, in theory, if it's successful, is that everything will just go to your on-chain attestation, similar to how we talk about Paymail addresses or hand cash handles. But they're on-chain. The identity itself is on-chain, which is pretty cool. So hope that helps. Next question, please. Hypothetically, if a single Satoshi becomes equal to 1 cent in value, can micropayments still exist? And if so, how? Always enjoy your show, mate. Keep up the great fight. Thank you, Jim. So this is actually really easy. This has been a theoretical conversation about Bitcoin for a very long time. What do you know about tokens? Okay, you can issue tokens in a lot of ways using Bitcoin, on Bitcoin, in Bitcoin, over Bitcoin, whatever. Payment channels, first of all, are a really good solution for this. So you can send subsats, you can send half sats, you can send millisats, which would be 1,000th of a sat. You can do all of these things right now in payment channels on BSV. I think you can probably even do it over Lightning Network, potentially do subsats. So things like that are an option in payment channels, which doesn't require any tokenization at all. So that's a simple solution. But the other way, so if we want to talk a little bit higher level, you can issue a millisat token. So let's say I take 1 Bitcoin and I lock it into a smart contract. Okay, so that 1 Bitcoin is 100 million. I just get screwed up in my head when I'm talking about it. 100 million sats, I think. Now each sat, let's say you're going to issue 1,000 sats per sat. So you're issuing 100 million times 1,000. So it's a billion or 10 billion. It's too many zeros in my head to count on my fingers. But let's just assume you have issued now 1 billion millisats, right? Now you just use those, and you use them the same way you would use any other token in Bitcoin. So that is another relatively simple and practical way to tokenize subsat units of account on Bitcoin. So ultimately, the price is pretty irrelevant in that regard, because you can just do this forever. You can make them, Desa-sats or Exa-sats or whatever else. You can just kind of keep adding zeros that way, and that's a really good option for you. Next one, please. And we got roughly 10 minutes before Jack Pitts pops on. Please give a detailed explanation of ASIC hosting. Love it. Okay, so this is an option. You can buy this service from me. I did not plant Joey Two Guns in order to ask this question, I promise. Okay, we host a pod, right? We buy a pod, which essentially just looks like a shipping trailer. It has racks. It is a purpose-built mobile data center, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, and it's connected with satellite internet to the blockchain, and it's doing the hash thing. It's looking for hashes. So if you were to buy an ASIC, like let's say you want a new Antminer S19 XP 141 terahash per second behemoth of a machine. So you could buy that from us and spend $3,000 or $4,000, whatever the thing costs. We purchase it on your behalf. It comes in a lot on a skid from Bitmain. It lands on our shores. Then we unrack it. We take down your serial number. We assign it to your account at gorillapool.io. and we hook it up to your payout address. And then it uses the amount of electricity it uses, which is going to cost you between $150 and $250, depending on the wattage and the cost of electricity. And we send you a bill, and you pay your electric bill every month. And in exchange for that, you get your BSV that you've mined with Gorilla Pool. So it's pretty straightforward. There's a few steps, but it works really well. And I would encourage you, if you want virgin Bitcoins, which is also key, they are freshly mined Bitcoins. You can mine with Gorilla Pool. Please feel free to reach out to me in a DM, or you can reach out to Kevin, who's at SuperGoose821 on Twitter. And he'd be very happy to give you a formal quote and walk you through the process with more detail. Thank you, Joey. Next one, please. About Money Button and their FabriikX. Do you know if the NFTs we bought are on chain and how to access them, or is everything lost? They are on chain, but the API is not. So you don't really have a good way to decode them. I've been trying to figure out the best way to do this. So we looked at, because Gorilla Pool's got servers and on-chain, the ability to do it. And it was like, okay, we could just make an attestation tool for the existence of Money Button Fabric tokens. But then you also need a wallet. And Money Button was the only wallet that integrated with what are called simple Fabric tokens. And so it kind of doesn't work unless you have the tokens and Money Button. So what we're actually trying to do is decide, okay, can we figure out a really good way for you to be able to send your Fabric tokens to a burn wallet and instantly remint them as one-sat ordinals, because that's where literally everything is going. We don't have it all specced out yet, but I can tell you right now that our team is working on a solution to see if it's viable. It should be viable. It's a relatively simple thing to do, but of course, everybody's doing all kinds of other things at the same time. So we're trying to get that solved. At the end of the day, your tokens are 100% on chain. It's just parsing them. It's like extracting their data from the chain and deciding that it's your, it's Bostian token, for example. It's a little bit like we don't know the logic that goes into it. That's not difficult, but again, it's not just the token. You also need a wallet that is compliant with that protocol, and so then that becomes a lot more work. In which case, it's a lot easier to just burn them all, remint them all on one set of ordinals. But then you also have to establish, like, what's the claim process? How do you know if they're valid tokens and all these other things? So it's a lot of things to think through. But then once it's thought through, the process itself is like not the worst thing in the world. Best I can do for now. Next question. Okay. Was there a follow-up response here? Just said devs could not create a backdoor, but then said if the court case was won by Craig, that it could be done. BSV has this, so presumably it can be done without too much effort. Yeah. So this is talking a little bit about the DAR tool, the digital asset recovery tool. Here's the thing. If all nodes agree to a state of affairs in Bitcoin, that's it. That includes taking money out of your wallet and putting it somewhere else. This could happen on BTC, it can happen on BCH, it can happen on BSV. BSV created specific tooling that allows for it to have a standardized process, and in my opinion, as an added protection on BSV, such that it can't just be done randomly. It literally requires a court order to be digitized and put through the system, but there's nothing stopping it from happening in BTC at all. In fact, it was purpose-built in order to apply to all Bitcoin-based blockchains. So, yeah, and it's also not a backdoor. Backdoor implies that it's like a cryptographic trick, and it's not. It's literally just an unlocking script that triggers a Bitcoin transaction. So there you go. Next question. Did Goth 600 start yet as the VIP of witchcraft and propaganda for Twitter, as Elon Musk mentioned? I don't know, unfortunately. I try to largely ignore Elon Musk because I think he's one of those guys that's always saying, like, hey, look over here. Look at this thing. This thing is coming in 6 months. It's going to be amazing. And, like, he's always actually doing something over here. And so, Elon, be very careful with Elon. Like, that guy is not your friend. So, yeah, be careful, everybody. Next one, please. if you're transferring a millisat token on chain, does the TX itself still cost at least 1 sat? It depends how you create the token. So if you have it, yeah, not necessarily, because in theory, let me think about it. So what you actually need is an unlocking script, and you can send. So this is why payment channels, first of all. So to answer the first question, payment channels completely solve this problem. It doesn't have to have a TX. But if you were to do it just as tokens, you can probably aggregate them. But I'd have to think about how. So this is sort of a business question. Somebody can solve this, but perhaps not me live on the air. Next question. Kurt, if the governments of the world make you pay in Bitcoin for taxes and government stuff, then they start giving out tokens at some point, won't they control the money supply again? It's more issuance of money that's the problem, right? So big holders, like Bitcoin is not a proof of stake system. So big holders, in my opinion, are largely irrelevant. Like they don't actually have excessive power unless the only thing you care about is the price. So somebody that has a lot of coins can dump a lot of coins, but it still doesn't impact the supply issuance or it does impact circulating supply, but not supply issuance, not the scarcity, for example. So in my opinion, it's pretty irrelevant. I don't think it actually matters. Like why would it matter? Does that matter? So I mean, for me, like being able to spend Bitcoin and take Bitcoin as salary and all these other things, pay my taxes in Bitcoin, as you said, no, it's not supply it's supply and demand. So if they have coins, but the economy is demanding coins, the price of those coins will go up until the government is like, okay, guys, we're going to spend our coins because we get a discount for spending them because they keep going up in value in this demand circumstance. So no, and that's actually kind of the beauty of it. This is why proof of work really matters as a governance tool. Yeah, so yeah, think about that. No, that's kind of the beauty of it. Before we cut to the next question, Brandon can cut to the next question. I want to remind everybody to tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Joshua Hensley is going to be doing an Ordinals, what do you call it? Roundtable, CoinGeek Roundtable with a bunch of people from the Ordinals ecosystem. Hey, here we go. Dive deeper into Ordinals with our expert panel tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hit the bell to be notified here. So, yeah, no, you really should. It's going to be a good panel. First of all, Joshua is great, but it's also going to have David Case and Jad Wahab. And who was the other one? There's one more. I don't recall. So, but I'll be watching. So set your alarms, alert bells, all the other stuff. Oh, got a private message from Mr. Brandon Ward. Nicola Schreiber from I'm. So, no, that'll be great. Next question, please. And then we should have Pitts here in 2-ish minutes. Next one. Did Ordinals make traditional NFTs obsolete? They definitely made Ethereum NFTs obsolete. So if you go back 2 years, let's go back to the dark days of the pandemic. The Ethereum NFTs exploded. This is your Bored Ape Yacht Club. This is your ETH Punks, Pudgy Penguins. You got all your other stuff that got really, really big, right? So there's lots of big stuff happening in ETH. Big money. Like Seth Green was selling buying and selling Bored Apes for millions of dollars, right? Well, they have lost 99% of their value. Volume is in the trash. Liquidity is in the trash. So it's done, right? So ETH NFTs are basically a ghost town right now, and Bitcoin Ordinals, and this is actually BTC, BSV, Litecoin, Dogecoin, all of them have tons and tons of volume. So Ordinals, in my opinion, are a smarter way to do tokens because you're actually inscribing sats. So instead of hey, this is just a pointer to a JPEG on IPFS, which was my main criticism of the Ethereum NFTs, that's gone. Like that doesn't exist in Ordinals, and it's a really cool thing. But I want to see it do more than what it's done so far. So to answer your question briefly, yeah, a little bit. Let's do one more question. So let's pick a real good one, and or maybe we do a couple rapid fire ones before we bring in Pitts. Brandon, fast as possible. Can you talk about the latest BSV Citadel Bitcade? How was the turnout and how were the conversations? We had over 30 people in the room. I told people, bring your kids. We set up a bunch of kids with hand cash wallets and told them, show your friends at lunch. And so we're bringing the kids, man. It's going to be a groundswell. Next question. Rapid fire. How is the COPA case looking in January? Are these guys still confident in their plan to disprove Craig? Well, I'll tell you right now, this OnTA news that happened, Craig actually hired a really killer litigation firm that I'm pretty stoked about. I don't know a whole lot of other details, but the Craig people are not screwing around. Next one, real quick. Any support for music yet in one sat ordinals? Actually, Hensley, his one sat ordinals include music. He's got those Space Invader-y looking ones. You can do them. I'd love to see Jamify. I'm sure Jamify one sat ordinals are coming soon, but I'm not sure if there's an interface just yet for such a thing. Next one. Do we have another one before we bring in Jack? Could nChain apply for BSV spot ETF maybe as a follow-up to the London Blockchain Conference? nChain probably doesn't have any of the necessary licensing to do such a thing, and it would take potentially years for them to apply for all of that, just to get the prerequisite stuff. Jack, can I get a thumbs up from you? Are we good to bring you in? Because you look like you're yelling at kids that just put the TV on or something. All right, let's bring in Pitts. Oop, side by side. There we go. Hey, Jack, how are you?
Good to see you. We seem to be Kudlowing and Kramering here a lot. Does that mean you're Kudlow and I'm Kramer, or how's that work?
Yeah, I'll be Larry Kudlow, please. I think he's less handsome, but I think he's more on the ball. So
there's always a bull market somewhere. It's my job to help you find it.
You know what? Actually, I'm the bald guy, and you've got more Kudlow-esque hair, if I recall. Or is Kudlow bald now too? I don't even know.
I don't know. I did like him a lot better. He seemed to be a bit more honest, but he wasn't trying to sell you anything like Kramer.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about. I don't know a ton about Huobi, the exchange. I know they're an Asian outfit. They've been around a long time. They got a lot of liquidity, but they just made the announcement like, hey, BSV USDT perpetual swap contracts. What's your take? What do you think of this? Where are we at? Is this good? Is this bad?
Justin's son owns a bunch of Huobi exchange and helps run it. Anyway, that's all we need from there. Thanks for having me, and that's all I have to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Pitts.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I mean that's an interesting take right away because it is. It's always who owns these things. Probably if you look at the equity of the whole thing, it's probably not just Justin. It's probably CZ and more people that really don't like us, right?
Yeah, I was just reading some Viking history. Apparently, my family's from Normandy. They're Norman, which means they're either Denmark or Sweden originally or something. Yeah. But anyway, some king got lost a war, and it ended as soon as somebody killed the opposing king. And so in that same respect, the opposing king to me is OKX because they claim at least to have about 95% of the liquidity in BSV, mainly via Tether, which I think is also about 95% market wide.
Yeah.
And so that's why I focus on them. But Huobi, up until kind of some of the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff, was always number 2 at, I don't know, I'm going to guess like 5% of kind of the overall BSV market. So yeah, I don't mention them, but they would be enemy number 2. In other words, if we got rid of OKX, I would push to get rid of Huobi immediately afterwards. So
I understand your logic. You know, you've been talking about OKX. You've even been publicly like tagging the CEO and the exchange account and all these things on social media and saying, hey, please delist us. We don't want to do business with you. I'm curious, you know, for the people who say, okay, yeah, sure, the price is probably manipulated, but aren't on-ramps and off-ramps and volume and liquidity a good thing, even if we don't like the people in the market?
real liquidity is a great thing, but fake liquidity has the opposite effect. It makes you think that you're in a crowded casino playing a fair game of blackjack, or at least according to the house's rules. So it's not entirely fair, but fair as in the rules are published, so you know you're at a disadvantage, so maybe you have to count cards or whatever. But the reason I point this out this way is in the movie The Sting, the best scene is at the end. It's a movie about con men from the 70s, won an Oscar award, I think, so you should probably watch it. But in the last scene, the Mark, who's really only one guy who they're trying to get all the money off of, he's in the casino and watches like a whole murder take place, and they tell him to hightail it out of there, and then like he leaves, and it's like, oh, he'll never be back, and they have his money, and he's like, what about my money? He's like, do you want to go to jail forever? And he leaves, and it turns out that after he leaves, the final scene is every single person in the casino is in on the rig. It's in on the con. Right. And you don't really know this as the watcher until the very end. You're aware that there's a lot of con men in there, like, but you're not aware that the entire casino, like
it's all literally everybody.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, if you think about it from the guy who's getting conned, it's a civil attack, right? You're having a conversation with one person, but it just looks like there's 400 people in the room.
Right.
And this is turning out to be a very effective thing. I mean, you can probably talk about Greg Maxwell on Reddit and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also works on NFTs and, probably even the art world, like the real art world, the fine art world. But with this scene, it's better to think of it from one of the cons. Like, imagine you're just the janitor guy. You're wearing a janitor outfit, and you're in on the cons. So you're going to get your cut. But like, you look around, you don't see any of the other cons. The Mark is like the guy you have to try hardest not to look at, because you just know that's the guy. That's the sucker in the room. And so every single person in the room is looking for a way to con you. And that's what it's like to be trading on Huobi or OKX. Every single thing about that casino, or bucket shop, as Craig likes to call it, is rigged against you. And if you don't believe it, all you have to do is like follow Bitfinex and fake Tiger Global, and a couple of these guys. They're documenting, at least while it happens, what happened at FTX, and why is Alameda Research not only trading against the customers, but using the customers' information against them. And that's how they're making money, right? They when Kurt puts his, not you, because you're not trading there, but when some Mark puts his stop loss order in, the whole casino is like, oh, well, that's where he would sell it for a loss.
This is the Bogdanov meme, the like dump it.
I mean, it's like you're going into battle and you tell your messenger, just send our entire battle plan to the enemy before we go into battle, just so he knows where we're going to put all of our people and when we're going to send the cavalry in. Just give him all the information about how we're going to do it, and then let's see if we win the battle. That's what it's like to be in these bucket shops. And there's a reason why they're offshore. Huobi is not going to operate in the United States, because while, some of this, the United States has a very rich history of rigging markets and commodities markets. I mean, half the CFTC was set up to prevent rigging of the commodities market.
Right.
The Hunt brothers of the gold in the 80s, people are still rigging it today, right? I mean, certain things. So it's like, it's a constant battle. But the difference in cryptocurrency is has been zero vigilance. There's been no regulator that can control it, because it's all over the place worldwide. There's multiple exchanges. You've got an exchange like OKX that I would bet probably has like maybe 1 to 10% of the volume that they claim to publish. And that makes them look big. But we found out from the Winkle Tossers and Genesis Trading and all these other big kind of white shoe, have to be semi-legal in the United States operations, they were all sending their trades to Binance, right? They're using Sequels organizations, because CZ owns all these things, and this stuff is coming out every single day. And it's
actually, like little bit of breaking news. Prime Trust. There's a document that just came out that Prime Trust was using customer funds to buy more assets at places like Binance, because they screwed up how they transferred assets to their custodian, which is Fireblocks. And apparently people were depositing coins into what is essentially a burn address. And then they didn't realize it for a while. And so when they went to like move customer assets, they're like, oh no, we weren't sending them to the custodian. We were sending them to the burn address. Let's take other customer funds and go buy more at Binance.
Well, you know what, Kurt, that might be a bit of a cover up because that sounds like a mistake. And what I would say is my gut feeling on this, and I have to go on all poker reads, but you know, I spent 20 years chasing fraudulent companies as a professional stock shorter. So I've seen almost every fraud there is. I mean, there's a few new ones, granted, but But what my gut feel is that Prime Trust, who was basically the bank you would send your ACH to when you were moving money into Bittrex, right, to trade BSV
or anywhere. I mean, they were like everybody's actual cash on ramp.
So they're holding your BSV while it's supposedly in Bittrex. They're holding your US dollars. They're holding your cash. Now, here's the thing. They raised $107 million last summer, right? I mean, not even like 12 months ago. They raised $107 million. And before that, like 10 months before that, they raised something like $65 million. So that's $170 million was invested in this thing that's basically like a bank. And banks typically make money very slowly and on very small margins. So you'd be happy to make like, 10, 20, 30 million or something off this money. And this is important because where did that money go? Because Prime Trust is basically bankrupt. They were begging for money like a month ago to people that I know in New York. And, looking to raise capital. Where is the capital, right? In real estate, it's in Aunt Susie's roof, improvement or, your house or something or your car.
Illiquid, right.
Right, but it's at least an asset, right? You can, the bank can take control of your house and sell it and get money. Where is the 175 million? Where is it stuck? And I think what you'll find is that anywhere there's fiat, there's CZ and Huobi and Justin Sun looking to suck that fiat in and sell you dog shit in return, meaning shit coins, FTT, BNB. BTC, they don't give a crap what it is. It's all funny money to them. And you're giving them real money, which is what they need. They have plenty of funny money, right? I mean, what does CZ have in BNB? I don't know. It's probably several tens of billions of dollars.
Tens of billions, or it was until, whatever. Okay, let me play devil's advocate a little bit. BSV and BCH pumping like crazy. I mean, not absurd numbers, but as a percentage, they've actually been quite big. Why is that happening if we presume that these market makers and stuff are just anti-big blocker predators? And then to add to that, somebody, I think this person Jay mentions like there's a lot of Asian big blockers actually. So if you want to find like the classic big blockers, they're in Asia. So I mean, do we just assume? It's just like anything else. This is your drain the swamp QAnon stuff. Like, hey, trust the plan. We've got people on the inside. Like, you have to assume somebody at Huobi is actually not an enemy. Like, maybe the staff, like there's staffers that are like big block. No, everybody's bad. Okay, so why the pump? Where's the pump coming from?
It's not that everybody's bad. It's that the enemy has $100 billion to play with. And you're playing with 500 million, which is what, 0.5%?
Yeah. And
so how are you going to, like, in other words, a challenge for someone like CZ or Tether would be like, oh, how do we get like this $150 billion asset BTC to go up again? Because that would help us sell more shit coins, right? That's a tough problem for them, right? They have to think about that one. That's where they spend their time thinking. BSV, it's like removing a tick from the bottom of your toe. It's just like, bling. I mean, it's $500 million that trades. I'm going to guess it trades less than $1 million a day.
Yeah.
I mean, CZ sells $1 million in shit coins in a minute. So like you come in and you buy and maybe even Craig buys or Calvin. It doesn't matter. Like it's so small that they just overrun you with Sybil, go like 10 times the amount. They sell you derivatives, which by the way is what you open your question with. Huobi is trying to do this derivatives in BSV like it's a good thing. The last thing you want in BSV or a commodity market is derivatives, right? This is how the government can keep control of the gold and silver market. The gold market's really big. It's tough, but if you can print fake gold futures, not fake, but if you can just like sell a bunch of 100 gold futures versus the poor guy who's buying physical, physical is really expensive and it's hard to get and take delivery and store.
As I understand it, that's more epidemic in the silver markets. Like apparently there's like 3 times, or maybe it's even crazier, 3 times as much paper silver as there is physical silver on Earth or something like that.
Oh, I think it's big, even more than that, right?
Maybe it's 30, maybe it's 300, but I know it's some like absurd multiple.
Right. And it's, you know, it's easy to control when you're selling IOUs and the other person has to buy physical. And this is why if you're going to buy BSV at all, you have to buy physical and you have to take delivery, because if it's sitting on Bittrex, you know, back in the old days of several months ago, but if it's sitting on an exchange that even is in a first world country and has regulations, they're going to lever it. They're going to lever it against it. They can lever it 100 to 1. Yeah. You buy one BSV, they can sell 100 on loan. How are you going to beat that? And you're 500 million on top of it. So unfortunately, the price of BSV matters if you care that it has a commodity value. And the easiest example is look at the history of oil. It's 150 years. And I don't think anybody would argue that it's not an important substance on the planet for humans. And if you have ever seen oil at all-time lows or even 10-year lows at any point in that 150 years and saw a bunch of investment going into oil, then I'd like you to tell me about it, because I don't think it exists. When oil is high, people invest in drilling and refining and pipelines and shipping. When it's low, nobody invests. They're struggling to survive. Right. And that's what you're seeing in BSV, right? You're seeing a struggle to survive, because when you go to an investor in May of 2021 and it's like, oh God, Bitcoin was $100 like a few months ago and now it's 492, they're like jumping ahead of others to get to invest in your BSV startup. Now at 15 to whatever it is, $30,
35.
They're like, God, everything you say makes sense, but it's just not working. And
why does the market hate you though?
Why does the market hate you? Like, and it's because of this belief that BSV trades in this like fair market. Well, how could it possibly be fair when the Winkle tossers send their trades to Barry Silbert at Genesis, and Genesis sends their trades to several Sequels Islands entities owned by CZ to Binance, and they have 95% of the cryptocurrency market on their ledger, and he sees everything. And we know that Sam Bankman-Fried was his protege. Is that the right word? What's the word for the
yeah.
And Sam Bankman-Fried,
protege is the learner.
The learner, yeah. Sam Bankman-Fried's like the son of CZ, like learning all the ropes, and and he's got Alameda trading against his customers, and he's like inflating the FTT token. And the Solana token's complete BS. Like, what do you think those people are doing? Like when they have all the information, like everything you're going to trade, they know. I mean, maybe not. They don't care about you in particular, but they bunch you up and go, oh, at $19, everybody's got their sell stop order, right? So they're just like, let's hit that. And they can even buy BSV if they want at that price, because you're selling it to them for a loss. And then they let it drift up and they just sell to more people as you go. And it's easy.
So, so again, like to bring it back, like why then the pump? Like why are BSV and BCH have outperformed the markets for almost 3 weeks now? Yeah.
So if the best thing for a trader who's like an HFT or kind of like the old Howard Lutnick traders from the bond traders, you want just the same volume every day and the same volume every minute. Because when you know the volume, you're prepared. You tell your trader army to go out, or your bot, like, this is what the market's going to do 20 million today. So you're going to be, 100 million of that or whatever. You're going to be most of that. And you kind of know what to do. But there's these periods of time where real information comes in and there's an army of people that all want to buy at the same time. And markets have tried to solve this problem forever, right? It's like, well, 89 days in a quarter, no one gives a crap what IBM is doing. But when they report the quarter, volume skyrockets to forever. You know, it's huge. And everybody wants to trade it that day, right? Because the information just came in, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's an easy day for real people to trade, people who have information. And that's what the people in the BSV ecosystem are. Everybody from Calvin on down has information that's valuable. And occasionally when Craig tweets irrefutable evidence, you know, right in the middle of this like rocket ride, well, everybody's going to go, oh God, irrefutable evidence. That sounds good. Sounds like we're going to win COPA. And that's only 6 months away or 7 months away. Let's get it while it's $25 or $27. And everybody's in there all at the same time. And guys like the bots, even that are algo trading for CZ to keep this thing down, they just stop trading. They're like, whoa, this volume is out of control. Alert my master. It's like the robot's going, I didn't plan, you didn't write code for this. We shut down. And that's when the price, you see these price spikes all the time in BSV, right? Or anything, right? I mean, if the Mark Cuban starts talking about flow or something, or, you know, they sign a new soccer team from the Premier League, it's going to go up because people are going to buy it fast. And that's the occasional time where you can outrun. And so how do you solve this if you're CZ? You simply wait it out. You go, okay, well, how serious are you? Because
he froze. Or did I freeze? Did I freeze? Okay, no, I'm on the air. Brandon's shaking his head. So we're 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Oh, Jack looks like he's back though. Bring him back. Hi,
I'm
Jack. All right. Did we lose your mojo? Should we wrap it up here, or do you want to just pick right back up?
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, how do you solve these price spikes if you're the guy doing the rigging? Well, you sit on your hands a little bit and you go, well, how much are they going to buy? And how big is this little buy frenzy going to be? Because eventually it's going to peter out, right? I mean, you know, Craig tweeting about irrefutable evidence is now like a week ago. So are you buying today on that thing? Or are you buying tomorrow? Because the price is higher, right? And so there's where you see that kind of, it goes up really fast and then it kind of just like, oh God, and everybody gets defeated again over like another month goes by and it just keeps drifting down and down. Next thing you know, it's below $20 again. And you're like, oh, I guess that was a pump and dump. And, you know, it's the thing is like, if the market were trading on real not real fundamentals, because that would be, that'd probably be bad for BSV. But if it was trading on just the real market fundamental, the actual buyers and sellers, I am positive that we would probably be in 4 digits by now and a top 5 or 10, you know, digital asset, because nobody who's small, a retail investor, is holding and going, God, I really hope I can get, you know, $40 out of this thing, or $60 or even 100, right? If this thing went to 400, most people would be like, yeah, 68,000 next, buddy. You know? And the bigger guys are the same way, right? They can even do less because they have so much they own of Bitcoin or BSV that they're not able to sell it to anyone. There's not enough people. So you really need like this market to be fair in some shape or fashion. And right now we do not have that. Sure.
So follow-up question. I don't know if you were watching me, presumably you heard me call your name because you were watching earlier, based on BlackRock. So BlackRock's got their ETF. They talked about like, hey, we might pick some other fork to be Bitcoin, which should then lead a few people to say, okay, well, what other forks could be Bitcoin? Vis-a-vis thing X happens, people are buying BSV and BCH. Do you think that is possibly what's going on here?
I think for BCH, definitely, because it's probably not, nobody really cares about it, the good side or the bad side. So it is mainly trading because the EDX market started by BlackRock is going to trade BCH as one of the 5 securities. So you saw Litecoin. Yeah. Same thing happened with Litecoin. There was a couple of days where it was up 50% every day.
Yeah.
You know, the smaller ones are going to do better than the bigger ones on an announcement like that.
Well, sure.
So if BSV, I mean, realistically, I didn't know this. You informed me. I was actually eating lunch and I caught the tweet that said that you were on. So I caught a little bit of it and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I didn't know that Craig was mentioned in the risk factors, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But like, if you know to put Craig in the risk factors, then you damn well know that BSV should be in that list of 5 things, right? It's the same Bitcoin, just with a different ticker symbol, but better. So there's deliberate. I don't know why. I'm sure it relates to politics or Silicon Valley, and you know, Craig says a lot of things in those areas that aren't going to be very pleasing to people that control technology things. And it could be that, or it could be just the fact that there's a ginormous $1 trillion casino and they all make money. And if the real Bitcoin emerges, you know, and you're very good about documenting all that MasterCard stuff. So like, you know, who knows I don't know that, but I do know that there is a lot of people that want BSV to fail.
Sure. Well, and so that's the curious thing. I would love to go another hour with you, Jack, but I need to wrap up in a couple minutes here. But I wanted to encourage you to read the whole SEC filing, because as I read it, I was like, okay, these guys actually really get it. Like, they truly understand the cards on the table and the playing field, and like, they get it. They understand like who the players are in BTC and BCH and BSV and what, like, the implications and like whoever wrote the damn thing or whatever team did actually really, you know, they're probably watching the live stream right now. So
the same thing happened in Coinbase. When you put the risk factors down, it's what we used to call in the Navy a CYA, cover your ass. What you're doing is saying, I know that I'm doing bad shit and I'm going to cover my ass by stating it, so that if you buy Coinbase stock or you buy BTC, whatever, that we've stated in this little line on page 49 that Craig could be Satoshi. And they know, you know, even if it's with 90% certainty, they know that they're taking a risk here. And that it's not that they're dumb. It's just that they don't want to acknowledge what the reality is. And they're trying to cover their ass so that they don't get sued.
Got it. Makes sense.
And by the way, I have to say, since I have you on in your yellow shirt, there's about 2 days left for Bananas. The celebrity word auction. Kurt will define Bananas. I don't know how, but the winner of the auction will own it, and the proceeds will go back onto Word Bounty for more people to earn. So it's a great way for the dictionary to get written, and also it's going to be the world's first celebrity word auction token. And I think that'll be a big deal as we do one every month and we get better and better celebrities as the years go by. But lastly, and this is important for the price discussion, I think the last price for your token was $77.
Not bad.
Like three Bitcoin, depending on the day. And about 10% of that substrates the definition. So like, call it $7.
Yep.
But divide $7 by whatever Bitcoin is and translate in that into Satoshis, and those Satoshis get secured, not buried, not burned like some of these stupid shit coins, but secured as like the land underneath your building that's going to make money. Yep. And that's important because, to the best of my knowledge, Slictionary is the only company in all of cryptocurrency or BSV that is securing Satoshis in any logical way that helps BSV get its fundamental price. So rest easy knowing that Kurt here, in his definition of Bananas, is going to sock away about $7 or $8 of BSV that will be locked on information that will help the rest of the other 21 million, basically $500 million go up, because there'll be less Satoshis available to you.
Correct. That's it. It's the most valuable thing in the world.
Bananas.
Bananas. So, Jack, always a pleasure. Thanks for jumping in at a moment's notice. Frankly, every time you're on, I think people get the real alpha that they need here. So, thanks again. And yeah, we'll promote the heck out of it when it's time to actually do the definition. I've been tinkering with my definition to make sure it's worth everybody's time. So,
all right, see ya.
Cool. Thanks, Jack. So everybody, it's been an extra long CoinGeek Weekly live stream, Ask Me Anything session, and we had to bring Jack on because, well, the markets are crazy, and Jack's my gray-haired aficionado with the experience to help make it all make sense. So everybody, if you're watching, thank you still for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the alert bell, let everybody know how awesome these shows are. And thank you. You people are the best. You're the reason I have a job. And do not forget, you must tune in at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to the CoinGeek Roundtable. Joshua Hensley is going to be talking about Ordinals. It's going to be really good. Everybody, until further ado, remember to be good to each other. I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. signing off and saying good day to you. And
What's up, guys? On the next CoinGeek Roundtable, I'll be hosting a discussion on one-sat Ordinals and Ordinals in general, and why this protocol has been adopted throughout the digital currency space. I'll be joined by former Fixed Gaming CTO David Case, the founder of AIM, Nicola Schreiber, and the former Director of Engineering at the Bitcoin Association, Jad Wahab. We'll be live at 9 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday, June 28th. Join us, get your questions ready. We're going to discuss everything going on in Ordinals. See you guys then.
This is buybsv.com, the quick and simple way to buy Bitcoin SV. You can't miss it. It says a quick and simple way to buy BSV on buybsv.com. It's safe and secure. Within an hour, you'll own BSV digital assets, which means it's so quick and simple. So if you want to buy BSV, use buybsv.com. It does exactly what it says.